Good morning, folks. Happy Tuesday, and welcome to another great edition of Money Truth Moments with our very own Money Truth expert and whisper, Judy Copenbarger. How are you?
I'm great. Coming in from San Diego this morning. How are you doing, Carlos?
I'm doing great. Hey, you're traveling, huh? And you're still dedicated to doing the show. That's amazing. That's awesome.
I am. I love it. I love it. Well, it's good to see you, and I'm excited about this topic.
Yeah,
I
folks.
hope to put people's minds at rest a little bit with this one.
And we definitely need it for sure. Folks, welcome to the show. Make sure if you're not following Judy, do so at judycopenbarger.today, where you'll find all relevant stuff to today's financial world and then some, right? So we're very excited today to bring you another great topic as usual, but this is going to affect you more on what you're probably going through. So with me just kind of teasing you a little bit more, let's just get started with how to maximize your refund. So smart moves for a tax season, right? So that's a big one for a lot of you guys, whether it's personal or business. This is the show you want to share. This is the show you want to watch. So what do you say we get started, Judy?
Let's do it. This is the time of year for sure.
All right. So the big obvious question I have for you is why do so many people miss out on maximizing their tax refunds?
Oh, they just don't know. They don't know. They miss opportunities because they don't know the rules. And who wants to read books on tax law, right? Tax code. I don't. I have to do that a little bit, but I don't want to study it anymore. So I think, one thing that people can do to really make life easier is just have somebody that knows what they're doing, do it, delegate. If this is a stressful part of your life, just delegate it to someone that does it all the time. I don't know where these people come from, but there are people that love this. They love the spreadsheets. They love putting the numbers in the boxes. They love the tax returns, the details, finding the pennies and the nickels. There are people that are just wired that way. I are not that one, right? I'm not wired that way at all. But I've got great people in my life that are really good at this. And if it's kind of a stress point for you, I recommend that you find a good CPA or an enrolled agent or at least a tax preparer. If you have a pretty simple return, just get a tax preparer that is up on the rules. Every year they study what's new, and they'll be able to maximize the benefits that can come from the exemptions and the deductions for you.
So let me ask you this, since we're talking about finding someone, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of people who think, hey, I don't want to spend this extra money, so I'm going to do TurboTax, or hey, I don't want to spend money, so I'm going to go to, I've seen it in different stores where they have these little pop-up tax things.
Mhm.
How reliable do you really think those are versus actually going to somebody who's a professional, a CPA and all that?
Well, I'm sure there's like anything else, there's good, bad, and ugly, right? Some are probably really great, some are probably really not. I always just get a little nervous about people that DIY things like this because you don't know what you don't know. And you push one button and it gives you a whole different trajectory than another button. And maybe that's the one that really could have had a great deduction for you or a credit for you. And you didn't know to push the button. It's that simple. So I just hate for people to miss opportunities. But again, you have to weigh that against the cost of having a professional help you. It might be hundreds, it might be thousands, depending on the complexity, or if you have businesses or rentals, other things going on. If it's a very, very simple return, it shouldn't cost more than a few $100, depending on where you live. It's less in some states than others. As far as the TurboTax and all these programs where you do it yourself, for some people that have a pretty simple return, they have a job, they get their paperwork, they have interest, they get their paperwork, 1099s, and write all of those things. You can just plug those in. And if it's simple, you get those. And most of those programs, my understanding is they will walk you through if you have any questions, if you have any eligibility for credits, other benefits that might be there. And I hope we have time on this episode to talk about the difference between a deduction and a credit and
Oh,
an exemption.
absolutely. No, for sure. We're definitely going to make time. I also want to ask you, so you've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Especially during tax season and all that.
Yeah.
What's the biggest misconception that you've seen people have about the tax season?
Everybody's trying to get you. There's and maybe for some people it's true they're victims or whatever, but nobody's trying to get you. We have rules. It's just knowing what the rules are. And I think when we feel like we don't know the rules very well, it's like, well, they are trying to get me. If you were out playing a new sport from another country on a field and they knew the rules and you didn't, you'd be like, well, which way do I throw the ball or kick the ball or hit the ball, right? I don't really know. And how come that play was called against me? I don't really know. So I feel kind of oppressed, kind of upset, maybe a little bit like a victim, like they're trying to get me. And I think some people have that mindset when it comes to taxes because it just is so vast. And you hear all, the IRS is going to get you and they're going to audit you and fear. I just say put that aside. Just know enough of the basic rules or get someone, you can delegate this to, know enough of the basic rules to get it done and get it done right.
And speaking of that too, what are some ways, how can we understand the tax system that can help us better keep our money, right? I think that's crucial to what you're talking about as well.
Well, I think if you just look at the basic returns, IRS makes it, well, they don't make it simple, but they make it pretty easy to access this. So if you go on irs.gov, there's all the forms. You put in the forms that you need. And if you don't know what they are, you can look at what your preparer did last year or what TurboTax kicked out for you last year. So there are several basic forms, and depending on, what kind of income you have, what kind of expenses you have, if you have businesses or rentals or other things, income coming in from farms or inheritances, there's different forms for all of that. And if you look up the IRS form, they have a little search. It's very simple. There, you look up the form, there's always the form, but then there's another document that's available, the form instructions. And it's just a matter of spending a little time going through the form instructions. It'll show line by line, what number do I put here? Where do I get the information for that number? And you don't need to go through all 5 million of those, lines, but on a basic return, on a basic 1040, which is the federal return, you can go through some of those instructions and go, oh, that's what I could put there. In fact, I never thought about that deduction. And it's actually listed there. Maybe I could add that to my deductions, which takes away from your taxable income, which reduces your tax bill. Why not do that in your spare time?
Yeah. And these are great things that you're sharing with us, folks. If you're just joining us, please make sure you watch the beginning of the show as we are talking about a very crucial topic, which is our taxes, right? What we're all doing, not only personal, but business ones as well. So I kind of feel like we're kind of reaching the middle of the show here, but now we get to the real fun part, right? So let's talk about the most commonly overlooked deductions and credits.
Oh, let's see. I made a list. I'm going to look at my list here. I would say if you have a business or could have a business, maybe you have a hobby you could turn into a, income producing business, having deductions that are related to your lifestyle, but they're actually promoting business income. A home office, for example, let's say you're a professional or you're running some kind of a farm or business, and you have a designated space in your home that is an office. Maybe it's a spare bedroom that you've converted or a dining room. I don't know how many people eat in their dining rooms anymore. A lot of people
True.
I know really don't, right? They have the kitchens that are expanded with the big islands. And dining rooms kind of aren't what they were when we were growing up. You go there, you shut the door and you eat right in the dining room. And so why not convert that to an office? Then you can take a deduction of the percentage of your home that is allocated solely to the business purpose of this business and the office space. So let's say it's 5% or 10% of your whole house. Now, legally, you can write off, let's say it's 10% of your mortgage or your rent, 10% of your utility bills, 10% of your cleaning bills, right? If that space is being cleaned, 10% of your insurance, your taxes, all of that. That can add up to quite a bit of savings for a lot of people. But you have to have a legitimate business and you have to have a legitimate office that is only for that office, for that business purpose. You can't have your dining room that you work on the dining room table, right? It has to be just an office. But that's something that I think a lot of people miss. Another thing is, all the transportation. As you're out, if you have a business, either on your C form or you have a corporation or maybe a limited liability company, if you're out there doing your work, there's a lot of things that you do that are business purpose that you think, oh, well, I went to lunch and I met my realtor, or I went to lunch and I met with, a business partner, but it was just lunch. Well, if you talked about business, it's a business lunch. And so you can plan, if you have a lunch planned anyway, why not bring an agenda and make it a business lunch? Then the transportation to that location and a portion, it's not all of it, but it's a small portion of that lunch you can deduct as a business expense. So some people forget to think about the lifestyle things that we're doing that are actually business, especially if you have several business. Entrepreneurs sometimes have their finger in several pots. There are a lot of things that you do in life that cost money that could be legitimate deductible expenses. So, getting a handle on what those legitimate expenses are can really make a difference on the bottom line and what you have to pay or not pay in tax.
And I'm taking great notes because I do have a home office here. So thank you for all of that. Some great notes for
Absolutely.
sure.
Are you in
Uh,
it right now?
I am in it right now, working.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nothing happens there but work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's a great deduction and probably great inspiration for our audience.
And I paid attention every time we talked about different things, right, folks? And that's what you should be doing, grabbing a pen and paper. Make sure you take notes. It's just going to help you in the long run. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between a standard deduction and itemizing.
Yeah. So the IRS doesn't make things simple all the time. And there's a big evolution of tax code. So it changes all the time. As soon as we figure it out, they change the rules, right? Almost every year, there's brand new rules. So the basics are you have income. Income comes in from interest, it comes in from business earnings, it comes in from salary. It comes in several different ways. Maybe stock earnings, right? Or maybe you sell a property, right? So there's all these sources of income, and the IRS has a very dedicated way to allocate on your little boxes on your tax return where the income comes from. They kind of track that, right? They know somebody gave you money, they have a record of that, so they want to make sure you're recording that and paying appropriate taxes on them. So you show all your income, and then it says we're going to give you some exceptions, some exemptions. So every person, every senior, if you're blind, there are several ways that you can reduce the taxable income that you have. Then you get to page 2 after you get your adjusted gross income. A lot of people say your AGI. Then they say, okay, here's your income, but now we're going to take a chunk off of that amount of money. We're just going to bless you with that, right? So you can either take an itemization, which is another form. You can take medical bills, you can take charitable. That's where charitable comes in. So if you give a lot of money away, that can make a big difference. You either have the choice of itemized deductions or the standard deduction. And right on the form, it tells you exactly how much the standard deduction is. You get a minimum of that you don't have to pay tax on, a minimum of that amount. In 2024, I made a little note here. If you're married and you're filing jointly, you can take whatever your AGI is, that adjusted gross income from the first page. You can take $29,200 off of that number to get your taxable income.
Wow.
Yeah, well, that's great. And that was the last big tax code change, kind of made that nice for almost everybody filing taxes. If you are, let's see, if you are single or you're married but filing separately, you have, let's see, half of that. It's 14,600. And if you're married filing separately, there's a little bit more. So it's about half of that, right? So it's either 14,000 or 29 something if you're married. That's pretty good. So you just, whatever the tax percentage would be on that, you just take it off, and now you have your taxable income. The other thing to consider is credits. Now, credits can be two types. A credit is not how much you don't have to pay tax on. A credit is actually money they give you. So once you say, like, I got $50,000 of income at the end that's taxable, I've already taken off my standard deduction and done all that. 50,000 is taxable. So let's say my tax is 15,000. If I owe 15,000 and I get a credit, they just take it dollar for dollar off of my tax bill. That's a lot better than a deduction. See the difference? It's 100% instead of whatever your tax bracket is. So if you have a $15,000 bill and you get a $5,000 credit, now you pay tax of 10,000 instead of 15,000. That's nice. That's really nice. So
Yeah.
all kinds of credits out there, and they change all the time. So look those up, or have your tax return prepared. Look that up for you. Now, the other thing about the credits is sometimes the credits don't come off of your tax bill. Even if your tax bill is zero, they'll give you a credit. I mean, those are pretty crazy. Usually they're for, lower income or people that need special help, but there are credits that will give you money even if you never had to pay any tax. So
Wow.
that's worth knowing about, looking up. And that's again where, not knowing the rules is okay if you have someone that does know the rules in your life, that can help you. So that's where you can get a tax preparer. And I believe that would all be handled if you were on TurboTax or doing your own. That would be handled through a series of questions. Do you qualify for this? Do you qualify for that? Do you have this issue in your life? I don't use those, but I'm pretty sure they're thorough and they would walk you through and hopefully get you to the right series of credits that might apply for you.
Excellent. And folks, I see some folks are coming in. Welcome. And if you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.today. We're talking about taxes, how to help yourself on your personal level and on the business side as well too. So I know we're getting close to the end of the show, but I have one more question too. Hopefully we can fit in. Is what's one simple action that listeners can take today to get ready for this tax season?
Oh, get organized. Don't wait till the last minute. And here we are, it's getting close.
Mhm.
I would say just get organized. Have a designated place for all of your information as it comes in throughout the year. Usually, starting in November, you start getting information. Year end, first week or second week of January, things come in. Later, your interest statements come in. If you have investments, those usually come in February, where you get your stock gains and things like that. K1s come in first part of the year. So when those come in, put them all in one designated place, your little tax folder or your little tax cupboard, right? Maybe there's a desk drawer where all of those things, when they come in, you just immediately put them there. That'll save you the hunt later, which is, I hate that part. I've got to find that one document. Why is it not in this place? So I like to do that. And I recommend that people just think ahead, not wait until April and go, oh, shoot, I've got 2 weeks, right? So start pulling it together. Even if you're waiting for things, you might even create a list of what you're waiting for. Oh, there's 5 things I usually need, and there's 2 that I haven't come in yet. I'm waiting for those. And then you can watch for those to come. And if you get to, let's say, March 1st, and they aren't here yet, you can look into the institutions that have that information or go online and find what you need. So I think being organized, being prepared, not procrastinating is probably the best advice I could get. Easier said than done, right?
Right, right.
But just plan now for next year. Put on your calendar in maybe January 15th to create that space, maybe create half of a day or a couple hours if you have a simple return to gather everything early and make that list of what you're waiting to have delivered to you. And then maybe on your calendar, you can calendar this for 2026, right? And then on your calendar, put March 1st, is everything here now? Should I go ahead and make my appointment with my tax preparer? Should I go ahead and go through the rough draft on my turbo, to see what's new and all of that? Should I set aside a couple of hours to look at the form instructions on the IRS site and learn what new deductions? There's always a place for what's new this year, too. So once you get a handle on the basics, you can go, what's new this year? And it might be, oh, that's really good. And I think this year is going to be key for people because they're talking about a lot of tax code restructuring, right? In DC, they've been talking about we want to change this and add that and reduce this. So I expect there will be some changes this year, maybe a lot. And boy, it's a good year to be up on what those changes might be because they can benefit you.
Excellent. And folks, we are at the end of this show, and you know what that means. It's our Money Truth Challenge, and it's related to taxes, so I can't wait to find out.
Here's your challenge. 1, find 3 tax exemptions or deductions that you didn't know about before, like scavenger hunt, right? Go find them and then apply them. If they apply to you, let's do that. The other thing is the practical side. Make that effort to be organized. For this year, you've got a little bit of time, but for next year, go ahead and calendar the time that you're going to set that aside. go ahead and designate that space where you're going to start putting all of your tax things. If you don't have that done already, just having that organized, I think, will give you a lot of relief. That's your challenge.
All right, folks, you've heard the challenge. Please let us know if you need any additional help. If you're just joining us now, please make sure you watch the beginning of the show and share it with other folks as well, too, because we are talking about taxes. And if you're not following Judy, shame on you. No, just kidding. Make sure you follow her on judycopenbarger.today. She's got all of her social media and a lot of great content as well, too, as videos and all that good stuff. Judy, any last parting words?
Make it a great week and don't stress about taxes. You're going to be fine.
All right, folks, we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.